What's up? What's up? Stoked about this episode 300 coming at you. We've got AZ High Test, Jason Berland. We're here in the PHX. I thought, what better way to sit down for 300, hang out with Jason, find out what goes on behind the scenes here, and really just good dudes doing great things for the scene. So I'm excited about this one. Episode 300, AZ High Test. Here we go.
What's up, Ronnie?
What's up, Jay? Give us a tour. Magnets are sticking together. Hey, we're going to get a tour. Where are you at? Okay, let's go. Got that grinder TV on, looking good. Okay.
All right.
Give us a tour.
Where do you want to start?
We're in the shop. This is a new location. You've been here for about 6 months?
Yeah, right about 6 months.
6 months and about 5 years in business, right?
Yep.
Which we're going to get to. So we're going to check out the shop. What do you think? Is this good? I mean, you were just down the road, gets bigger and bigger. I remember when you got the first shop,
yeah,
and you were like, dude,
that was a big step.
Yeah, you're like, how could I ever outgrow this place?
Yeah.
And now you're here.
Yeah.
So to me, you're the plumber, okay? Whether you like it or not,
yeah,
you're the plumbing man. You guys do a little bit of everything here now. What's going on in this part of the shop?
Yeah, this side of the shop is strictly fabrication. So we really wanted to break the shop up between clean work and dirty work. You know, so this stuff is a lot of, you know, sparks and grinding dust and fabrication, you know. So we really wanted there to be a division, so that way the vehicles that are in paint or in final assembly are not right next to that. So,
and having it all under one roof definitely helps you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
What do you got going on over here?
So this one is a Rev B chassis. This is a full build for us. So truck came in, basically got it all blasted down. This one came in as a roller, right? Stock chassis, that went away. Rev B chassis, air ride. And this one's getting pretty much the works.
Do you ever have that where you find people have a stock chassis and you're like, let me get you into a full chassis?
Yeah. I'm, you know, as much as I like to be conservative on things, once you've been in a truck with a full chassis, there's no going back. Yeah. There's just, as much as I want to say, yeah, you could do, you know, bolt-on coilovers or this or that, you put that on a manufactured chassis, it's unbeatable.
And the snowball effect, once you start spending that money and start building your dream, you might as well do it right. This is a beautiful truck. This is a local truck?
Yeah, local guy, yep.
All right.
Yep.
So you do all your fab in here. This place is huge. What's next?
Yeah, so after fab, we'd roll over to you know, doing some preliminary wiring.
Now I know we're in after hours now, mostly storage right now. Stuff's rolled in, stuff's rolled out.
Yeah, so unfortunately we're in the same boat that we were with the last shop, right? So we really wanted to come over here and not have like this storage version, you know, but I think we've just come to grips like it's just kind of part of the. It's
a good thing though, right?
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have. I think at the end of the day, you're like, well, would I rather have more storage or more room? But at the end of the day, you're just.
Yeah, the truth is there's unfortunately in this business, there's a lot of waiting, you know, like we can't always get stuff when we want. And to date, I've never planned a job to come in and say, okay, on this day, we're going to start your truck. This day, the chassis is going to land. And this day, the parts are going to land. And we have like this clear cut thing. And then on October 31st, you're going to be driving your truck. I have yet to do that. And I don't know anyone that's done that.
What would you
I'm
say
not saying
if somebody, and we'll get to this in the pod, but what would you say is a normal turnaround? 12 months, 6 months, somebody's coming in. Obviously a loaded question. It depends on what they all want. Let's say now going back to just plumbing. I mean, that's what you guys started as.
Yeah.
Now, do you still just do plumbing?
We do. Yes, we do. So I really enjoy that side of the business, and it's still. How do I say that?
Well, here's this. Don't answer it because we're going to get to that in the pod.
Okay.
Yeah, I keep asking him questions about the pod. Let's talk this. I love this wall. So when you walk in, obviously I love the floating dually. I love everything that we see here. I mean, this is, you know, chassis smorgasbord, but when you think about everything that you guys initially represent, all your lines, all your fittings, did you ever think that you would get to this point where for the guys in the shop, this is great because these guys can just come over, they get the part they need, there's no time, there's no, you know, turnaround issues, wait time, but did you ever think you'd get to this point?
As far as this goes, yes. I've always dreamed of this since I was a kid. I feel like there's just such a level of efficiency. It's like having a hardware store, you know, for plumbing. So I did see this growing. You know, I remember like when we first got our slat board up, I think we had like a 4x8, you know what I mean? And it's like, dude, it's almost full. And now we're clearly a little bit more fittings than that now, but this is what it takes to plumb a nice truck. You know what I mean? And there's still times where everything on this wall, I'm like, you know what? I don't have that. We're gonna add it. So we're still adding.
Yeah, you see some different overstock stuff. How about the community? If they want, I know when we had you on before, you're like, hey, we can fill these things and people can get the same stuff that we're using to build these trucks. They can get that. Do you still put packages together for the folks out there? I
do, man. I don't advertise that other than this conversation because it's very time consuming for me. And you know, I might spend 2-3 hours designing somebody's fuel, air, and brake system, you know, but I really enjoy doing it. So I would say business-wise, it's a horrible idea for me to do it, but I do love doing it. So I do. So somebody will say, hey, I got this, this, and this. I've kind of streamlined it to where I have like a questionnaire to send them. It's like, hey, just answer these questions. I love this stuff, so I want to be a part of it, and like I geek out on certain things, you know, and so plumbing is obviously one of them. So I do enjoy, like, if somebody needs some help with that kind of stuff, I do a little design for them and kind of box up a kit. And they got to do all the hard work, right?
Yeah.
But design and supply,
yeah. I mean, for you guys out there, just another service that they offer. Again, we know everybody can't have their trucks in here, but an option. Look at what the pros are using, and it's available to you. So what else? What's next? I mean, we have all these different trucks. We have different lifts. How do you guys figure out the different stages and what happens and where does it start? So a truck comes in. Do you kind of have a progression, first base, second base, third base, or how does that work?
We do. We have an idea of how a truck can be disassembled and then customized and then put back together, right? And then there's so many steps along the way, and a lot of it, there's audibles, right? So you can, you know, does it make sense to powder coat the chassis first? That's a huge one. A lot of guys ask us that, and it's like, well, it depends on what the extent of the bed fabrication you're doing and this and that. So depending on the vehicle, we try to streamline it as good as possible. But yeah, for the most part, there needs to be like a pretty well thought out plan.
What would you say though, because we're in the shop, I feel like your old shop, you had spots for like the 5 vehicles in the kind of, you almost had it like a sundial or a clock, the way that they were in there. Now you have everything kind of sequentially lined up. What do you find is the best process? So the chassis come in, the builds come in, and then you find out, like you say, it's like, well, does that need to go to powder? Are we going to bend everything? Are we going to do everything and line it up? And then we're going to send it to powder? Kind of work, what's the workflow?
Yeah, definitely you got to start with fabrication. You don't want to paint a truck and start fabricating afterwards, you know. But really, aside from that, it really, I feel like it's extremely beneficial for the people that are working on it, the employees, to enjoy what they're doing, right? So if I have a guy and all he does is wire under a dash and he does that every day, he's going to get burnt out. Like, and you could see it in their work, you know. Like, I feel like everybody that works here is an artist in some way. I mean, in a lot of ways, right? And so if you burn people out, man, they're just not going to be able to do art. They're going to just work, right? And so a lot of it is trying to see what the project needs and then find the right person for it, you know. The difference between our old shop is we only had 5 guys, so like we had an expert in each division, right? And things would rotate around. Well, now we have twice the amount of projects and twice the amount of employees. So now there's 1, 2, maybe even, I've got 3 guys that could wire a truck now, not just 1.
So one thing that I really was like, what the hell's going on with this? What's this partial cab thing going on here? It looks like it got to metal locks.
Yeah, this one's in trouble. This is going to take us a while to put this one back together. No, this is a mock-up cab. So we decided that working on these chassis, it's basically a proof of concept before we really start digging into it. So when a chassis lands, this is really our first step, is we'll throw a mock-up cab on it. So basically it represents firewall location, floor location, and just make sure that the chassis is what we want it to be, right? So like, for example, you know, this guy's running a 525 LS3 and a 6L80, so I need to make sure the oil pan doesn't sit on the ground, the motor mounts are in the right location. And all these chassis dudes, they're really good. Like if I'm like, hey, Nate, can you move the motor 1 inch forward for me? He will, right? But it really sucks to build an entire truck and figure that out.
So how do you know, I love the mock-up cab, but how do you know that it needs to be moved forward before or after once the chassis already lands?
Yeah, so by putting the mock-up motor and transmission in there, I'll pick this guy's valve cover, for example. So he's running like a semi-tall valve cover, right? So coil on plug and basically just a slightly taller than stock, right? So if the valve cover's at 1 inch, he's got loads of room. If he wants these big fancy valve covers, it smashes the firewall. So there's 2 options. We can either redesign the firewall, right? Or we could just move the motor. And sometimes we do both.
Well, and you got a big tranny tunnel there. Obviously you've done that. So I got to assume you got one of these for what? You got all the Chevy Eras covered. You're looking for anybody out there, and you need a crew cab, you need a Ford. What do you need? I mean, this is cool.
They're great tools to have. They're very valuable to us
for the right price.
Well,
don't send your truck to the crusher.
No, yeah. Well, I'd hate to see that, but they take up a ton of room when we're not using them. You know, so like we have a pallet of every year, but I don't know if I want every year to afford. And then now we've got these crew cab dualies rolling in. I don't want a crew cab mock-up cab. We got to call it quits at some time. So
this is, the proof of concept, right? So you got your motor, you got your tranny, you got everything. Do you ever find that you stick something on there and you're just like, wow, this is, thank God for the mock-up cab?
90% of the time.
All right.
Well, dude, there's always things that I think that we can make it better. You know, these guys as a chassis manufacturer, whether it's Porterbuilt, Riv B, GSI, Art Morrison, you name it.
Go down the list.
Yeah, dude, they all do production chassis, and they give you what they think you want. It may not be what I want, you know, and so it doesn't necessarily mean that they're wrong a lot of times. It just means, hey, that motor would look really cool if I sunk it 2 inches back, you know? And so these are really easy things to deal with in this stage. You know, I go build a full exhaust and everything and decide to move the motor, not the time to do it.
How long did it take you to kind of get to the point where you're like, we need a mock-up cab?
Right away.
Right away. You're like, I need a mock-up, I need a cab, can I borrow a cab, can I borrow this? And then you made the decision, and then you're like, hey, we're chasing mock-up cabs now.
It started with the plumbing.
Yeah.
So fuel lines, the first chassis I ever plumbed, I ran the fuel lines, what I would consider standard, on the inside of the chassis. Then he got these long tube headers, and he's like, hey, the headers hit my fuel lines. What we came to find out is regardless of what headers he wanted to use, a fuel line, not necessarily hit, but be close. So then I go, okay, I want to put fuel lines in the outside of the chassis. That's pretty unorthodox, but it's almost our standard now. So because we have a mock-up cab, like I can run a fuel line through there with a 1/4 inch of clearance, and no matter whose cab goes on it next, as long as he's careful putting it on, the fuel line's good. So that's really where it came from, is plumbing. But then we, got into drivetrain, and drivetrain's huge too. So like, yeah, I see 100 reasons to have a mock-up cab. It is definitely a waste of space some days, but also like the most valuable tool we have here in the shop.
Beneficial.
Yeah.
All right, so we got a lot more going on. I see all this shelving. I see some chassis over here. Is this part of the flow?
Yeah. Basically, the idea is the shop kind of rolls in a circle, right? Yeah, so a truck will roll in, we'll strip it down. That normally takes roughly a day. And then, if it's a patina truck, we only blast the areas that we need, obviously. And then if it's a painted truck, we go full blast on it. And then basically the old chassis, 100% of the time leaves. That goes away. And then new chassis rolls in, and we just start fitting the new pieces to the puzzle.
Do you find that now, because patina is so popular, and like you said, hey, I take a truck in, I get to blast if it's getting painted, have you ever run into problems because you're like, it's patina paint, I got to really protect that now? Yeah,
it's tough. Dude, patina is very hard. I love patina. I love patina. I want a patina truck. I love patina. It's very, 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 very rare to have a true patina truck without some sort of fake, right? Like, so you're fixing a little bit of rust and you try to blend it in. You know, like, I'm not big into the faux tina where the whole entire thing is fake, but a little blend and a white lie here and there on the body, I'm good with, But for example, that Apache over there, dude, that guy rolled that one in and he was like, patina build. And I'm like, no, man, like.
That's gone.
Yeah, this is not the one. We either move on or you're getting a painted truck.
Do you find that that's ever kind of hard from that perspective to make that call?
Yeah, absolutely.
For somebody else?
I don't ever like being the bearer of bad news, man. That's a horrible day for me. And then generally when they go to blast, the news gets worse, because then you're like, oh, and there's rust, and there's like somebody put a stop sign at your door. Yeah, so it normally doesn't get any better.
I paid this much to have a patina truck.
Yeah.
What about the shelving? I see a lot of different things going. I see tags and names, and I recognize obviously Keith Roselle. So this is the layaway program?
Yeah, this is exactly. So yeah, once we tear the truck down, we got to have storage, and a place
Everybody
to put
gets
the
a
stuff.
shelf or what?
Yeah, at least a shelf, and then we also have like the little cupboards for the smaller stuff. But that's as good as we got, man. We really, I had this whole streamlined warehouse idea in my head, and dude, we quickly ran out of room here. To put it in perspective, one truck when it's disassembled takes up 2 of those shelves.
Yeah.
So that's 3 trucks at best.
It's funny because you think about it, and there's people that do it in a 1-car garage.
Yeah.
And
I've done it.
It's unreal.
I've done it.
Yeah.
And as a kid, we had a pool table. Well, it was made originally for pool, but it was a parts storage shelf. And then underneath was 2. And then we had a guest bedroom that also had car parts in it. So that was our 2-car garage story.
There's a lot of the audience that can relate to the guest bedroom full of parts. Your wife's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I want my garage back.
I don't know how my mom did it, dude. But
Yeah.
growing up, there was always car parts scattered. That's what it takes. A 2-car garage, it'll fit 1 car. So you take a car apart, it takes the
Especially when you
3.
have another chassis.
Right.
You have completely, like you said, I mean, it's crazy to think that you already kind of, blew up this much. What's going to happen over there? I see some construction. It looks like you've got a whole different room, and then we'll start the pod.
Well, yeah, so that's a great question. And it's...
You still don't know yet?
Yes, the answer is I still don't know yet. The original plan is we were going to do paint in-house, and I was full throttle on that. And I quickly learned a lot of the ins and outs of that as far as setting up a paint booth. There's a lot involved with that. But more so, I guess really just capacity. So we expanded as a business coming in here. And so, a paint crew is a minimum of 3 guys, right? And so for me to manage that and everything, at this point, I go, you know what? We're good where we're at. And so we've actually been leaning on Mason at American Built Customs. You met him earlier today, actually. So he's been knocking out paint for us. He did that black one that we took to SEMA last year for us. And then he's done a handful that are here in the shop for us. And
turbo truck? Or no?
Yeah, the twin turbo truck.
Yeah, twin turbo truck. Yeah.
So he's a rock star, man. And honestly, he's a good dude. I love working with him. So let's just keep working together.
Well, kudos to you for taking a step back, because I know it's once I get rolling, I want it all in-house.
Yeah.
But you're like, hey, I really want to be able to manage what I can manage.
Yeah.
And I know that I don't want to manage that right now and or can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. I don't know how many trucks are going on right now, but I'm going to say there's 12 full builds or 12 builds in here right now minimum, and then maybe 5 to 8 that are, getting kind of odds and ends. So it's whatever you're doing, it's working.
Yeah.
Does it feel like that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there's obviously days and weeks where I'm extremely frustrated with it, but man, the reality is we have a solid group of dudes. And not really, yes, the employees here are awesome. We all work really well together, and everybody for the most part gets along. That's hard to say in a group of 12 guys.
Sure.
That's difficult, but we really do. So that makes it worthwhile, and then we really have awesome customers. I don't know how, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I don't know how I wound up with that, but that is, I can only imagine that this would be an absolute nightmare if people weren't cool enough to let us do this stuff.
Yeah.
All of these are dreams of mine.
Yeah.
I would love to own any of these someday, and somehow we found 20 dudes that want to do this. So
good dudes awesome. That pay, that have the vision, and probably let you have the freedom. What's this thing? What's going on? This thing is cherry.
It's great. This is probably one of the wildest trucks I've seen. I still don't really fully understand it. This is a dude out of Australia. We did, I think 3 get downs ago, there was this twin turbo chassis in our booth with massive exhaust.
Yep.
That was his truck.
Okay.
So that one went back to him. And then he ended up getting married here in the States. So he bought this truck and they drove it from our shop. It got shipped here, drove it from our shop to Vegas, got married in Vegas, and brought it back here. So this is some dude out of Canada restored it. I want to know that guy. It's awesome. This truck is so killer. But it is restored. It's not really hot rodded. So he's Australian, so I think he loves burnouts. So it's the original motor's coming out. We're going to do 454 LSX and a 6-speed 6L80 transmission. But he's keeping everything, the kind of the Delmo look, right? The very OG look to it. So stock steering wheel. We found a way to make the GMC gauges. I know a lot of people do the Chevy conversion, which is sick. I love it. But he's no, I want GMC. It's a GMC. So
somewhat of a sleeper.
Absolutely.
If it's going to look like this, and it's going to have a 454 LSX, and it's going to look like it does here. I'm sure that things will change because he'll want more and more and more, but ultimately, what a beautiful build.
Yeah, he's got
what style, what vision?
He's got another one with us that's actually over there that's original paint, you know, patina build, and he's going to do Rev B chassis and all that fun stuff. So
and it still does have the rear fuel cell.
Dude, it's so
awesome.
It's wild that somebody. I mean, I love it, but you know, we get so custom and like.
Well, and it's a GMC. The audience needs to understand that not only if this was a Chev, but to be a GMC, whether or not it was a true GMC, I mean, I think they would have been.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
here's what blows my mind.
Crew cab GMC. This is very rare.
Hang on, but a GMC work truck.
Yeah. Custom. Yeah. And big back window.
Yeah.
Yeah, big back window.
Full trim. Like this was the boss's truck. That's all there's to it.
Now, what do you think's going on with this? Is it an extra long bed because your stake holes are just a little off?
Oh, I don't know.
I wonder if it's an 8.5 bed. This right here, this is awesome because to have this proves that it was a stagecoach or a conversion. They didn't make crew cabs, and you had to have it converted. GM didn't make them. They didn't make them in 67, 72 either. So if you work for the lumber yard, the railroad, the refinery, and they wanted these big trucks, they converted them. 5 years you've been in business, and this shop looks the way it does. I can't imagine what 5 more years is going to look like.
Yeah. I
Let's go talk about it.
Okay.
Let's talk about it.